Hey, it's SenLinYu from Novels and Nectar. If you're new here, welcome. This is a cozy bookish corner where we talk through romance, romantasy, and whatever else I'm reading, so you can decide if a book belongs on your TBR or if you just need a quick reminder of what happened before you dive into the next installment. In each episode, I'll share a quick review, then a spoiler-heavy summary for those of you who've already read the book and just want a refresher. I will always keep the review lighter on spoilers, and I will give you a very clear warning before we move into the summary. All right, now let's get into today's book. So today we're talking about Alchemised by SenLinYu. And before we get into the review, here are a few quick stats so you know what you're walking into. So I'm going to call it a dark fantasy / romantasy, very high stakes romance. We have war and resistance. There is this vibe of brutality layered with political intrigue and tragedy and bleak hope. In regards to spice, this is I gave it a 1.5 out of 5. There is some on-page intimacy, but it's mostly hinted or closed door, and it's not really the premise of the story. This is very plot-driven. Content warnings to consider include imprisonment, torture, sexual coercion, forced breeding, harm, emotional trauma, and mutilation. Be sure to check out the content warnings on this one. With that in mind, let's go ahead and jump into the review. I had been hearing the buzz around Alchemised and had previously wanted to read Manacled, but I didn't really get the chance as it had already been pulled down from the internet. So when this book came out, I knew that this was something that I really wanted to jump into, and I'm so glad that I did. I did kind of wait a little bit to feel like this was something that I was in the mood for because I had heard that it's a little bit dark. And this is true. With that in mind, this story gave me everything that I could have ever wanted in a story. The first thing I heard before starting was that the length of the book was too long. And now, having finished it, I feel like it was something that was very necessary. When you're reading it, it does feel like it keeps going and it's never ending. But with a world that's this layered and brutal, the extra pages let the politics, the magic, and the grief really breathe. And I feel like it really allows us to experience the devastation of what's going on in Palladium. I've read multiple standalones before, and I've felt like sometimes they feel rushed, or that things are happening too fast, or that things didn't really make sense in order to tie off the story. But that was not the case with this book. It was long, and although sometimes you just want to get to the grittier parts or more of our main characters, when you finally do, those moments are that much more precious because you waited for them. That she gave us had a place to get you to where you needed to at the right time. Then, when we look at the love story, at the heart of it all is Helena and Cain. And the relationship between the two and the development that happens gradually, everything that plays out with them, it just made so much sense. And I just loved how differently they are and their story, the push and the pull and the anger, all of it. It all made sense for them to have to navigate through these circumstances that they were forced to be a part of. And the unfolding of their story just felt so natural and so believable. And you just really love the way that they continue to come back to each other. Helena, oh gosh, there were moments when I was so frustrated with her. She would just keep choosing the resistance and the promise of defeating the Undying when my romantic heart just really wanted her to choose Cain. But honestly, SenLinYu kept her true to who she was as a character, and I understood why she was doing what she was doing. Her actions made sense. It was who she was. She was a pragmatic healer up until the end, and she didn't sway for the reader's liking. And then we have Cain. He is one of the most tortured main male characters I have read in a long time. And I've read other books, where we read about the torture of our main character and everything that he endures and all these things that they go through. And I just felt like we just kept living this tragedy with him. And my heart just ached for him every time she would describe the sorrow in his eyes or in his stillness when Helena would not choose him. And you could just feel his despair and his sorrow and guilt. And you just really want him to have this happy ending because he just deserves so much more than what has happened to him. He is made into this villain and he doesn't care, so long as he can save the person that he cares about. And that just made me love him even deeper. Man suffers so much up until the end. And true to her writing, SenLinYu does not change him for our liking or for the story. He remains what the world has made of him. And to be honest, I loved how possessive he was over Helena. He wants to take care of her so much and has so many opportunities where he can force her to do things. But he always gives her the choice. From the very beginning, he gives her the freedom to choose him. And even when he can't in part 1, the moment that he can, he trusts her and sets her free, sometimes to his own demise. By the final stretch, like 92%, I was so nervous for this story. I could not see a path to any sort of happy ending. And I kept thinking that I was just going to be so torn and so heartbroken if there was no recompense. Yet somehow, in those last couple of chapters, SenLinYu ties it off so well and really takes you through this journey of closure for our characters. It is bittersweet and believable, and the closing really honors them without pretending that the world is kinder than it is. I loved the quiet tone that this ends on, especially the way that it nods on how history forgets the people who actually bled to change it. By the time I finished this book, I just sat there, not knowing how to feel and just taking in the entirety of the journey of this story. The story is broken into 3 parts. Part 1 is present, part 2 the past, and part 3 back to the present with more insight now that we have the past. And I just felt like the way that she does this was so beautifully done. The callbacks that she makes when you're reading part 2 and how it all ties together, kiss. It just hits. There is a lot of plot and world building, but it all felt very purposeful, and I'm glad SenLinYu lets certain scenes sit and sting. It gave so much depth to the story. I can't complain about any of it. The journey she takes us on was necessary. Ultimately, I never had that standalone whiplash that you get sometimes, where events snap from point A to point Z with no connection. The entire story felt very thoughtfully built, and I would absolutely recommend this book to anyone, but I would caution you to read the trigger warnings before getting started, as there are a lot of tragic events. But if you're up for it, Cain and Helena's story was a beautiful tragedy that ends with hope. All right, so from here on out, we're going to go ahead and transition into spoilers. I'm going to be walking through a summary of Alchemised, so if you have not read it yet and you want to go in blind, this is your cue to pause here, read the book, and come back as needed. If you are still here and listening, then you are okay with spoilers, and let's get into it. So the book is structured into 3 parts. Part 1, the present. Part 2, the past. Part 3, the present with insight from the past. Part 1, the present. Helena Marino wakes in complete darkness. She's trapped in some kind of stasis tank, her body jerking under electric shocks, consciousness slipping away and coming back in waves. When the lid finally opens and she's dragged out, she learns 2 devastating things. Pallidea has fallen, and she has no memory of how she got here. But here's the thing. Her memory loss isn't normal amnesia. The Vivimancer Dr. Strout examines her and discovers that Helena's mind has been sealed shut, like someone deliberately locked her away from her memories. Helena has no idea what she could be protecting, but Morrow, the High Necromancer, is convinced that this is something crucial. As Helena is moved between holding cells, she starts piecing together what happened while she was unconscious. An old Resistance comrade named Grace fills her in on the horrifying truth. The Resistance has been completely destroyed. The Undying now rule everything, and everyone who's left is in service of Morrow, who's been creating armies of Undying and Necrothals, which are reanimated corpses with no will of their own. Helena also learns that Luke Holdfast, the man she was loyal to, and her closest friend is dead. This guts her. She can't understand how she could have forgotten something so important. When Dr. Strout can't crack Helena's sealed mind, they end up sending her to Spirefell, a manor in the countryside. This is the home of the High Reeve, one of the few people powerful enough to break into her memories. And when Helena arrives, she discovers that the High Reeve is none other than Cain Farron, someone that she vaguely recognizes from her past. Cain is cold, controlled, and absolutely terrifying. He's been ordered to use transference sessions to pull out whatever Helena is hiding. These sessions are brutal. They throw Helena into seizures, fevers, and unconsciousness, but her mind still refuses to give up its secrets. Between sessions, Helena tries to remember on her own, but all she keeps getting are fragments and flashes of the war. And also a sense that Cain is connected to her in some way that she can't quite remember. Life at Spirefell becomes its own nightmare. Cain's wife Aurelia watches Helena with open hostility, jealous with the attention her husband is giving the prisoner. The house itself is full of necrothals, and Helena realizes that the war didn't end. It just transformed into something worse. Then, things do get worse for Helena. Dr. Strout reveals Morrow's new plan to give Morrow a new body. She learns that Strout has secretly reversed Helena's sterilization, and now they want her to be pregnant with a child. She's told that she has two options. She can either conceive with Cain or be sent to Central, where she'll be used in their breeding program. Helena chooses Cain because at least with him, she feels some strange sense of safety, even if she doesn't quite understand why. Cain becomes very reluctant, but ultimately, he ends up complying. And over the next following weeks, they're forced into intimacy. Both Cain and Helena feel numb and alone after every encounter. Then, Helena becomes pregnant, and that's when everything changes. Her body has to redirect energy to the pregnancy, and the seal on her memories start to crack. Helena collapses, falls into a coma, and when she finally wakes up, the floodgates open. Part 2. The Past. With her memories flooding back, the story rewinds to show us what really happened during the war. Helena was the Eternal Flame's only healer, which made her too valuable to risk in combat. She spent her days at the Resistance headquarters and at the Bayard family house, which had been converted into a makeshift hospital. She was close with Luke Holdfast, the Resistance Golden Boy, and future leader of Paldea, and his whole circle, including brother and sister Lila and Soren Bayard. But as the Resistance started losing ground, Helena made a desperate suggestion to the council. What if they stopped burning the dead, and instead reanimated them to fight the Undying? The council was horrified to hear of such a thing. They called it heresy, a violation of everything that the Eternal Flame stood for. They suspended her from the council and banned her from the hospital. Then, Jean Crowther and Ilva Holdfast, Luke's aunt, pulled Helena into a private meeting. They had a new mission for her. Cain Farron, a powerful alchemist who could turn iron to gold, had approached the Resistance, offering to spy on Morrow. He claimed that he wanted revenge for his mother's death. But Jean and Ilva didn't trust him, and they needed someone to control him. They tasked Helena with becoming Cain's liaison and seducing him to secure his loyalty. Helena, feeling isolated and desperate to be useful, reluctantly agreed. Helena meets Cain at an outpost, and their first interaction is tense and strange. Cain demands a kiss to test her commitment, and Helena notices immediately that his body doesn't quite feel human. He gives her a ring that matches his own, a way to communicate when they need each other. Then he teaches her animancy, the ability to read and shield memories, warning her that the Undying will use this against her if she's ever captured. As weeks turn into months, Helena and Cain keep meeting. Helena becomes a pariah in the Resistance, cut off from Luke and her friends, forbidden from council meetings. Her only connection becomes Cain, and slowly, against everything she intended, they start to matter to each other. She sees his loneliness. He sees hers. They begin training together, and Cain becomes obsessed with making sure that Helena can protect herself. Then Helena discovers that Morrow has been experimenting on Cain, torturing him to try to unlock new alchemical powers. She sees the scars on his body, the silver streaks appearing in his hair. And when Cain shows up one day with his arm missing, something he should be able to regenerate, Helena realizes just how much he suffered. She starts healing him in secret, even though she knows that Jean and Ilva wanted her to let him die. Their relationship deepens. They drink together, talk about their pasts, and share their pain. One night, after too much wine and too much honesty, they kiss. Helena is overwhelmed by desire, but also guilt, because she's been using him this whole time. But things get so much worse. Ilva reveals a secret to Helena. The Stone of the Heavens, a mythical relic that can access and manipulate souls, is real, and Helena is one of the only people it responds to. And Luke, he has no idea. He thinks that he can win this war on his own, but he can't. Ilva and Jean have been lying to everyone. Helena is furious, but she's trapped. So Helena makes a deal. She promises to fully secure Cain's loyalty. And then one night during a training session, everything changes. Helena and Cain become intimate. Real, raw, wanting for each other. Afterward, lying in his arms, Helena feels both triumphant, as if she's completed her mission, and devastated, because now she knows what she's done to him. Helena reports back to Jean that Cain is loyal. He'll do anything they ask. From there, the war escalates. Luke is captured and tortured. Helena and a small team break into the Undying's prison to rescue him. During the escape, Soren is killed. Helena tries to reanimate him out of desperation, but necromancy doesn't work that way. His death is permanent and his memories flood into Helena's mind, fragmenting her. After the rescue, Luke blames Helena for Soren's death. Their friendship shatters. But Helena keeps working. She and Cain discover that obsidian can kill the Undying, and so they create a bomb. Meanwhile, Lila reveals that she's pregnant with Luke's baby, and Helena does everything that she can to protect her friend. But then the worst thing happens. Morrow infiltrates headquarters using Luke's body. Helena realizes too late that Morrow has been possessing Luke, draining his vitality for months. Luke begs Helena to kill him to stop Morrow, and as he's dying, he makes Helena promise to take care of Lila and the baby. Helena is shattered. Cain rescues Lila and the baby and hides them. Helena creates a distraction by bombing the Westport lab, but on her way to safety, she's captured by Eric Lancaster and his followers. Helena uses every animancy technique that Cain taught her to steal away her memories, protecting Cain. And the last thing she feels before losing consciousness is her ring burning, Cain trying desperately to find her. Part 3, The Present Again. Helena wakes up screaming. Her memories are back. All of them. And Cain is there, overwhelmed with relief that she's alive. She's disoriented, trying to reconcile everything. The man who was cold and cruel to her in Part 1, with the man that she fell in love with during the war. Cain tells her the war is over. Lila and her baby Apollo, who they call Pole, are safe. But as Helena processes everything, she realizes the devastating truth. The only way to kill Morrow is to kill all the Undying. And Cain is one of them. Furthermore, Morrow has a piece of Cain's soul, and Cain has resigned himself to dying. But Helena refuses to accept this. She also realizes that Cain has been trying to keep her calm so that she won't run or harm the baby. She confronts him and promises that she'll protect the pregnancy if they escape together. But Cain can barely talk about the baby because of how she was conceived through coercion. Helena tells him that it doesn't matter. She loves him. She wants this life with him. When Strout unexpectedly shows up and examines Helena, she announces that the baby is a girl. Helena works to get Cain to see this child as his daughter, someone that he's allowed to love despite everything. And eventually he softens, and they choose the name Enid, after his mother. But Spirefell is unraveling fast. Aurelia hosts a dinner party where everyone discovers that Helena is pregnant. Atreus, Cain's father, confronts him about letting Morrow use him, and tensions explode. Then Ivy shows up with crucial information. Morrow has Cain's soul stored in a phylactery made from his own bone. If they can retrieve it, Helena can restore Cain's soul and he won't die when Morrow is killed. They send word to Shizeo for help, but he's killed on his way to Spirefell. Aurelia and Cain have a brutal fight. Aurelia compares herself to Cain's mother in front of Atreus, and in a rage, Atreus kills his own daughter-in-law. Cain is forced to leave for several days on Morrow's orders. When he returns, he's gravely injured. Helena nurses him back to health
and he begs her to run because Atreus is becoming dangerous. Helena confronts Atreus instead. She tells him the truth about Maro torturing Cain, about how Maro tortured Enid, Atreus' wife. Atreus is shocked to hear this, but he still lashes out. Just when things seem hopeless, Ivy returns with Cain's phylactery. Helena performs an agonizing procedure to try and restore his soul. And then Atreus, in a final act of redemption, sets Spirefell on fire to give them time to escape. Helena and Cain flee on Amaris, Cain's chimera. They hide in a hunting cottage. They reunite with Lila and Pol. The four of them make amends and plan to disappear to an island off the coast of Etris. Even though Cain's disappearance has sparked fighting in Paldea, they make it to safety. Helena gives birth to a baby girl. They name her Enid Rose Farron. For a while, they live together as a makeshift family. Cain slowly warms to Enid and lets go of his guilt. But Maro is still alive, still a threat. Lila decides that she's going to go back and kill him to avenge Luke. Cain helps her train, and when Lila is ready, she leaves Pol with Cain and Helena and sets off. A year and a half later, Lila succeeds, and Maro is dead. Lila returns and asks Helena to come back to Paldea with her. But Helena refuses to leave Cain. They've built something here, fragile and hard-won, and she won't give it up. Helena and Cain raise Enid in isolation, doing their best to give her a real childhood despite everything. Years pass, and Paldea rewrites its history, painting Cain as a monster and erasing Helena entirely. She becomes merely a footnote, a name on a faded photograph. When Enid is grown, she wants to leave for Paldea to study vivimancy at the Alchemy Institute. Helena and Cain let her go, even though it breaks their hearts. The ending shows us Enid reuniting with Pol in Paldea. They reflect on their difficult childhoods and everything their parents sacrificed. Enid wants to tell the world the truth about her parents, but she knows that would put them in danger. So she keeps their secret, carries their story, and moves forward into her own life with hints of deep, growing friendship between her and Pol. As for Cain and Helena, they stay hidden, together, and finally safe.
All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you want to dive deeper into the books I talk about here, you can head over to my blog at novelsandnectar.com with a K, where I share spicy chapter lists, similar book recommendations, song pairings, and discussion questions if you want to keep the conversation going. If you are part of a book club and want ready-to-use questions and guides all in one place, you can also join the Nectar Nook, my membership where I put everything together for you in one cute, cozy space. And if you want to keep up with new episodes and new reads, be sure to hit the subscribe button and join my newsletter so you never miss a bookish update. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you in the next one.